fuck? Like, you're just jumping out of planes already.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't make sense in your mind. Like, why would you do this? It's like skydiving or bungee jumping. It doesn't really make sense to most people. You're only really going to do it if you're adrenaline junkie. So it's weird in that sense. And then all of a sudden, it's like you're doing it with a plate carry-on, with a helmet, with a 60-pound rucksack. You're in this crappy military plane, and everyone's pissed off, and they're trying to like literally kick you out. If you get into a shit hot incident, you want somebody with like a machine gun or a belt-fed gun. You want somebody with a grenade launcher. You want somebody, if you're going to kick in a door, with like an M4. So we get out of this L-shaped wall, we run back into this flat area of this road, we run up this hill and kind of stop at the other side of it. So this was after walking 5 miles, running another 3, being in a firefight for a couple hours, running back another 3 miles up this fucking hill, so we're all just fucking tired.
When you go through some existential crisis, you're almost forced to, or get into like a closer faith, kind of.
Yeah.
You get closer to faith, you get closer to divine, God, the universe, or...
People only start coming to church at a low point in their life. It's absolutely for answers, for help, for guidance, for... You have your physical and mental well-being, but people forget about the spiritual a lot. And as you get older, right, like you become more wise. You become more understanding of what life is and what death is.
All right, man. We were talking a little bit before the podcast, and I had to stop you because I knew you were telling your story a little bit.
Right.
And I was like, okay, we got to start recording.
Okay. Yeah.
So my first question would be, can you talk about how you got into the military and how that came about? Where, like everyone, I'm sure, like a lot of us are all fuck ups in high school. So can you go ahead and continue?
It's a weird time, right? Because you don't ever take it seriously. At least most of us don't. I joined at 17 years old. That's funny because my dad had to sign a waiver for me to get into the military because it was underage still. And I remember him was like, yeah, give me that. And he just signs it, But it was, the shithead in high school. Grades were terrible. Hung out with people that weren't so savory, did some unsavory things while I was in high school as well. Really the only thing that kept me kind of for a little bit in line was like martial arts, boxing, Muay Thai. Taekwondo was a little bit earlier in my life, but anyway, so just not really good kid. College wasn't an option because my grades sucked. My dad wasn't going to pay for my college. I wasn't going to get a scholarship. If I really wanted to, I could have went to like the local community college. Is that better? The local community college, but it was, I didn't want to do liberal arts. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
And I think most people, like I said, have that problem, right? It's almost like like the majority of people, they just get really bored in school and then they look for other avenues. But yeah, go ahead.
You spend your entire life up until that point in school, then all of a sudden it's like you're an adult. Oh, but you need to go to school for 4 years. Like nobody wants to do that. And then another thing too, like probably one of the biggest influences was 9/11, September 11th. My dad was actually supposed to be in one of the Twin Towers during that time because he had worked for Morgan Stanley, which was a large investment firm, and he would travel a lot for meetings. And one of the places that they had a corporate office in was one of the Twin Towers in New York. I remember my mom waking me up and very vividly, like, you got to get up and watch the TV. I remember exactly what I was eating, where I was sitting at the table, like watching live footage or news coverage on the TV, like getting ready for school. And I remember that day, and like it was there, everybody went home early from school. But that was a big part of it. And watching, obviously, the global war on terrorism from 2001 to 2010 when I graduated high school was like, yeah, this is something that, I want to contribute to. I want to be a part of. I want to do my, I don't know if I want to call it civic duty, but I do want to put myself on the line to protect the country that awarded me the freedoms that I have today. That's how I really got in.
Yeah. Were you thinking about that mentally before you got into the military? That was your driving force to go in?
Yeah.
Or were you already in it, or
yeah, I think at like
process?
15 or 16, I already made the decision, or really set in my mind that it's like, this is something I was going to do.
Yeah.
The recruiters come to your school and they hand out free swag, and it's like, it was cool. So it was always in my head.
Yep.
To some degree, but it's, as soon as I could, I left for basic training a month after I graduated high school. and I already locked in that date before I was even done with high school. So
Yeah.
it was,
Well, could you talk a little bit more about like you said your dad was supposed to be in the Twin Towers,
yeah.
and then what happened?
I think it's I don't remember exactly, but his flight got canceled or
Yeah.
something to where he was a the branch manager in Hawaii. So I'm sure like I don't know something came up
Yeah.
to where he couldn't go all of a sudden something at the home company, but I'm not sure. But he just was not there that day.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he was supposed to be there like the times that
right.
those planes ran into
Yeah,
to the Twin
yeah,
Towers. That's crazy, man.
yeah.
Like that's wild how life happens that way.
Yeah, it's
Just
everything
I
for a
mean, he
reason.
could have been in there. Right?
Absolutely.
Like it's
Yeah,
just either or.
yeah,
He could have been
yeah,
in there, but he wasn't.
yeah.
And those are just due to unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah, something you have no control over. And you don't know that. You don't know that's going to happen like the next day. Like nobody did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're very fortunate and he's, it's just crazy. This day I remember all of it.
Yeah. Was the so how was your experience in the military?
It's interesting. Is
Yeah.
is I mean, I describe it as interesting, a good time.
Mhm.
It was something that I really did enjoy, and if I always say if I could go back and do the same job that I did and obviously not be this old, be a little bit younger, I would.
And what'd you do?
Infantry.
Okay.
So for my army people, 11 Bravo was my specialty, which is infantryman. More specifically, I was an airborne, so we jumped out of planes. It was an airborne unit.
Wow.
And then when I deployed to Afghanistan, my specific role was port observer, scout in a sniper section. So that was interesting. But being 17 years old, young and dumb, grew up on an island, never really left for travel. Like, didn't really know what the rest of the world was like let alone or even just what the next state was like. And then all of a sudden, you're in Fort Benning in Georgia. Never experienced humidity like that in the middle of the summer, and you're meeting people from like Kansas and Mississippi and Florida, and people have never seen an Asian person before. And I've never seen like the first time I had biscuits and gravy was in basic training. I had no idea what it was.
It's like a melting pot of people, huh?
Yeah,
It's
dude.
just different people, different races from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been. Yeah,
It's a culture shock. It's
Yeah,
a culture
right.
shock, and then you have to learn how to not only get along with these people but work with them. And you know them for 4 or 5 months. You get really close, and all of a sudden, everybody disperses to different areas, and same
Mm,
thing starts again. You meet these people you have no idea who they are, and you have to learn how to get along with them and work with them. So it's an interesting experience just in that sense.
yeah.
Not even just talking about the job, like just the people, but it was a fun time. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it.
What led you to be a airborne sniper? Did you think at that time when you were young, you were like, "Oh, that's fucking cool. I've seen it in movies," or
Yeah.
did you know a little bit about like, you did you research it a little bit? Or you like, "Ah, I'm
No,
gonna jump
I
out of planes
didn't.
and shit."
I think my mindset was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this full blast. So like, I didn't want to be a cook. I didn't want to be like. They have like jobs for like paperwork guys. You have admin. They have finance. Like I could have went in and just did paperwork for the entire time. But I was just like, no, I'm just gonna do it. I just did it full blast, and I scored well in the ASVAB. He was like, you can have any job you want. It's like, I want to be infantryman. It's like, are you sure? Like, you can do anything. It's like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I loved it, man. It was a good time.
That's interesting, man. A little bit of a story about myself. I was also a fuck up. I think I was into my like second DUI,
Uh-huh.
and I was young. I was like 21, something like that.
Uh-huh.
And this is gonna be embarrassing. But then on my ASVAB, dude, I had to take it like 2 or 3 times. Like the third time, you have to wait. A certain
Yeah,
period.
yeah, yeah.
And like finally, I think I passed it or something like that. It was so long ago. I'm 39 now, but they were saying, yeah, you could get into infantry or water purifier.
Oh,
and
yeah.
a water purifier, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Kind
And
of bottom barrel jobs or whatever you want to call them.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I was supposed to join with my buddy, and they were calling it, I guess, what is that? Like a combat buddy or something, or battle buddy?
Oh,
or
battle
something.
buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
battle buddy with my friend. But he ended up scoring very, very high. We were
Yeah.
from polar opposites.
Huh.
And yeah, I guess I just didn't go through with it. I don't know the reason. I was just like, oh, fuck this shit. But yeah, no, that's interesting. So you could have been anything that you wanted to be because you scored, but that's not like correct me if I'm wrong, an executive position though, right? Because I think you have to go to school for that
Right. If you
or
want to be
something
like
like
an
that.
officer, you need to go to
Yeah.
school and get a degree. But yeah, I
But as
mean,
far as like the ASVAB, you scored really high on it,
yeah,
and
it
you were
was
able to.
enough to where like I could have done artillery or I mean I don't know about intelligence, but it's basically like it was just whatever you want. Like you kind of picked it, and of course, like at the time they need people. Um, but yeah, that's what I wanted to do, and I picked it and didn't hesitate on it.
Bro, now that I know that, walk me through what you did for. Okay, so there's like this. You were jumping out of planes, and
Yeah.
and this is, I'm hearing this for the first time. Like it's a shock to me. Because that's actually why I wanted to talk to you, because I'll kind of look from the sidelines of people that I'm gonna talk to.
Right.
Mainly, what I'm saying is like Instagram stalking,
Yeah,
honestly,
you're
and
like doing
just
your reconnaissance.
right,
Yeah.
and just talking to you, from time to time at the gym,
Yeah.
at Syndicate, that we both train Muay Thai over there, and yeah, you have a lot of guns. You go
Yeah.
out to the desert a lot, and yeah, you're a military man. Pretty much that's why I wanted to talk to you. Can you walk me through what you did first? Actually, the training, what you did first, and the training that you had to do. Was it like parachuting out of planes or something
Right.
first, or?
Yeah, like so ultimately the job was you were front lines, period. That's the infantry part. The airborne part was you were in a unit that was capable, if needed, to basically fly you over an area behind enemy lines or just some area that was it could be just completely royally fucked up and it's like we need people there now and we're just gonna literally kick you out of this airplane and hopefully you make it there. So that was the idea with that's the idea at least with airborne units. So as far as training for that goes, like you go through basic training, then you go through your job specific training. It was like 4 or 5 months, and then you graduate that, and you go to airborne school, which is about a month. So the entire time you're there, you're learning how to fall, how to put on your parachute, what to do if it doesn't open. You're practicing in like towers or they have like little like canopy lines where it's like you're in a tower here and there's a lower hill here and you like practice landing or moving through the air. And then you practice jumping at the end of it. And then when that's done, you either go to another school that you might have signed up for or people go to their respective units. So all in all, I think that was like 6 months of training, just like out of the gate. And then you get to your unit, obviously, and the people who you're going to be with for a while, and you do more training in different areas of the world. And then everybody at some point will deploy. So I went from, I remember when I got to my unit, I was in what's called a mounted company. So basically maybe 100 people. And our jobs more specifically, besides airborne infantrymen, was you would drive heavy trucks and you would shoot big guns out of those heavy trucks. And I was in there for like maybe a year, jumped around from different positions. And then I tried out for this scout sniper platoon and I got in there and deployed with them. That was interesting.
Can you talk before we move further to that? Because
Mm-hmm.
I think you said you had the training of like opening your chutes and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did you actually get on the field of like jumping off planes?
Like the first time I did it, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Geez, what month was it? Maybe November or October of 2010.
How long did it take from like when you got out of basic training and all that?
Yeah.
From the first time you jumped
Oh,
out
like
of
3
the plane?
weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, you're just cranking you
Fuck it.
through, like trying to just this is how you do, this is how you okay, go, and then you're just
Yeah.
oh fuck, and everyone's obviously super nervous
No
about your
shit.
first time, and I mean, still, like I remember my last jump in the military, you're always a little nervous, like what the fuck, this parachute? Number one, the parachutes are at the time they're so old.
Fuck yeah, bro. I'm
They-
like tripping out right now. I'm
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? Like, you're just jumping out of planes? All right.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't make sense in your mind. Like, why would you do this? It's like skydiving or bungee jumping. It doesn't really make sense to most people. You're only really going to do it if you're an adrenaline junkie. So it's weird in that sense. And then all of a sudden, it's like you're doing it with, a plate carry-on with a helmet, with a 60-pound rucksack, with and then it's like you're in this crappy military plane and everyone's pissed off and they're trying to like literally kick you out. And then like, to make it probably the worst thing about it was like these parachutes were so old, they would keep track of when and who packed these parachutes. There's a little book in this little pocket here in the strap. So once I remember I was just waiting, you're sitting there and I look back and it's like, holy shit, the last time this was used was like 5 years ago. And then I remember like that specific jump, the chute opens and there's like patched holes.
Oh no.
And it's just like, what the fuck? And these things are like from Vietnam. They're so old. But it's so weird. But you know, after a while you get a little used to it, but it still makes you a little nervous.
Fucking gnarly. Do they insure you in some way that
I mean, if you,
I don't know how much it helps, but then it's like, yeah, don't worry, guys, it's safe.
Yeah.
It's been used over and over and over.
They say like they do QCs, but no, they literally just they shake him. They call it shoot shake, where they like reel it up onto a long string and tie it to basically a roof, and they shake it and then they pack it just to get all the bullshit like sticks and leaves out, and then they pack it like next. There you go.
Bro.
And it's like, well, you better fucking hope your chute opens. You do have a reserve chute in like in front of you in case that doesn't open, but even that, like, piece of shit, super old. And then if you die, like your next of kin or parents get like $400,000 or whatever your life insurance policy is. But yeah, it's super funny.
That was my next question, is that I don't know if you know like the statistics or even know anything about it, but how often do you think that happens? Like an accident like that?
I don't know.
Or have you heard?
I haven't heard, and that's probably better that I didn't hear about it.
Yeah.
I do remember though very very vividly, there was a jump that I did where the guy in front of me, and it was at night, which made it even worse. The guy in front of me, his chute didn't open correctly, so like cigarette rolled, where it's kind of just very tight and thin. It wasn't like completely open. It looks like a cigarette as well as cigarette roll. But he burned in and hit the ground so hard that he had like compound fractured his femur.
Wow.
Yeah, and things like that happens where your chutes don't open all the way, or sometimes you collide into somebody next to you, or sometimes you get stuck underneath somebody. So those things happen, probably not as often as some people might think, but they definitely do happen.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where it does happen. It's just scary to think about. It's kind of like getting bit by a shark or something.
Yeah.
Doesn't usually happen, but when it does, it's like,
you're
fuck.
fucked. Yeah. It's a bad time.
When you first jumped off the plane, because this is so fucking fascinating. I've skydived before. Nothing like that, obviously. Just tourism skydive. But someone, your first time is someone behind you? Like, you know how you see someone's like...
Yeah, so like a tandem?
Yeah, like someone's like literally
no
up your ass.
No, you're fucking, it's you and that's it.
What the...
So
and they just tell you what to do, man?
So
they're
it's
just like, hey, man.
So our parachutes were what's called static line chutes. So you have this long line that you hook up into the plane, and then that is attached to your parachute. So as you jump out and that line stretches, it pulls your chute open for you. So there's no thinking involved. It should automatically deploy, but when you jump, it's either 10 or 20 at a time, and you just line up and you just go, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're just jumping around right after the other. And if you stop, which is fucking hilarious, I saw it, they will kick you out. They'll literally like Spartan kick your ass from the back out of the plane.
You mean before you jump out of the plane?
Yeah.
Like when
if you freeze.
Because I've seen that, not just in movies. Like I've seen how they did it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking interesting.
Yeah.
So there's what? So I'm trying to get a visual. There's 10, 20 of you guys in a line.
Right.
And then you're jumping out one by one, right? Like, so you're going, it's not like...
it's in like a file. And then so you're walking down the plane and there's a door on the side. So it's like, you're just one at a time. But it's like right after the other. You are pretty much on their ass as far as like timing goes. And you're just going till the last person goes, and the dude controlling everybody just looks out and makes sure nobody fucking hit the plane or is tied up on a wing. And he's like, yep, we're good. And just fucking, and then they do it again.
Yeah. And then, so going back to it, you said that if you just happen to freeze, you're like, oh shit. And then they're like, move aside, dude, like just sit down.
No, they won't even move. They'll kick you. They'll kick you out. They'll fucking kick you in the back, and you'll go flying out the plane.
Wow.
I saw it. I remember, I think it was the second The second jump we did in airborne school was a little girl. It was a little girl, and they booted her ass out, and it was like, "Oh, fuck, I guess I gotta go." Like,
Oh
there's
man.
no, like, not going.
Yeah, after seeing that, it's like, well, you have to
You're
go
gonna get
that way.
out,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're gonna get
You're
out.
gonna get
Yeah.
out, and once you're out, like, it's really not that bad. It's obvious. It's just an initial jump.
But then there's you when you first jump out, right? Isn't like the G force and stuff like that? Doesn't it get like uncomfortable? Like
It
your balls like going
It
all
does, like, your stomach kinda comes up
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
into your throat. It does, and you last
Ugh.
4 to 6 seconds. It just
Is it okay?
depends.
Is it okay?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's not terrible, but I remember sometimes where it's like you'll count in your head because 'cause they'll tell you to count to 4, and if you don't feel it tug on you by 4, you should be pulling your reserve. And I
Mhm.
remember there was a couple times like 4, 5, 6. I was like, "Oh, fuck." But it catches you at some point. But it's not wildly uncomfortable, but it's a little unsettling. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You get used to it, but it's just a weird feeling,
Okay.
just free falling.
So from there, you said that you got deployed in Afghanistan, was it?
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I know that don't ask, no tell, but did you don't kill me or anything, but
No, 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 dude, it's
this guy
open
has a
book for
sniper gun on my face.
the most part, man, like
Yeah.
yeah.
So did you do any missions like that? Did you kind of go into like Afghanistan into like I'm just gonna go right into it, like in
Yeah.
enemy territory and jump off a plane and have to go on like this crazy mission?
So there was believe it or not, there hasn't been an actual combat jump like jumping out of an airplane into, like, Afghanistan or Iraq since, like 2007 or 8,
Mm.
and when I was in, it was, like, from 2010 to 2015, so we didn't actually do an airborne operation in Afghanistan, but we would still, like, get dropped off by up armored vehicles and walk 5 miles or, like, get dropped off in the middle of nowhere by a helicopter and walk, so we still did missions, we just didn't jump out of planes in Afghanistan,
Right.
um, and our op tempo was pretty high. We were only there for about, I think it was like 10 or 11 months, and missions would last anywhere from a couple hours to a couple days. You'd come back, you'd eat, you'd hang out, and sometimes if you had enough energy, you'd lift weights or work out, and then you'd be back out there again in 2 to 3, 4 days sometimes.
Yeah. For the people that don't really know about that like me, what are some of the missions that you could talk about that they have you do? Like
Um,
when people say mission, right? You
it's so many different things. Yeah,
It's so many different
yeah.
things. Like what are probably I don't want to say regular missions, but then what are the most common like missions that you do, or if there's anything common about it?
Right. So most common missions done by infantry units, not particularly what we did, but would be like um, just kind of patrolling. So you get in vehicles or you'd walk on foot and you kind of just do a loop or do a route and make sure nothing shady's going on, and you'd hopefully without shit popping off just come back to base. That's kind of your typical infantry unit or platoon or companies. Most of the time, that's what they're doing. What we did, we were a little bit more specialized. So we did things like observations or what we call like observe patterns of life. You'd get dropped off somewhere or walk at night. Hopefully not get spotted, hide somewhere.
In their territory, is
Yeah.
this like in? Would it be called hostile territory? Is
I
that
mean,
like
all
how
of
it's
it's
labeled?
hostile, really,
Okay.
because it's home field advantage for them, right? Like you never
Mm,
fucking know where
the
they are,
terrain and yeah.
and sometimes it'd be right in your base, and you don't even know it, like working as mechanics or cooks or something. But anyway, like you would, and then you'd hide somewhere in a hill or somewhere and just observe and see if there's anything shady going on, and you would either just watch and report, or you would directly intervene. Do we do things like that? We did some what's called direct action, where like I think raid is kind of the slang term for it.
Okay.
What else did we do? We
Raid as in like your typical like what you see FBI do, just go in there and
Yeah, for the
yeah.
most part. We would and then sometimes we'd be attached to a small special forces element. They would be usually the ones to go into these compounds, kick in doors,
Mm.
and do the sexy room clearance stuff. Some of our guys got to do that too. Sometimes we do like I remember there's a mission that went from uh, observing to an ambush to like a 3 mile field assault to holy fuck, we need to get the fuck out of here. That was,
Really?
yeah, it's so your mission might be you're going to do X, Y, and Z, but as you get there and something changes, it's like, oh shit, maybe we should be doing this instead. And you might get an order from your command to, yeah, that's what you should do.
And
Each
how
one,
was that, man? Was it like, because if you get a change in order, that means that you're not, it's not what you thought it was gonna be, right?
right.
Is it scary? Is it like, oh shit, like this could go bad kind of situation?
Uh-huh.
That's why we have to redirect what we have to do.
Yes and no. Sometimes it's just you have a tactical advantage and you're just going to take it.
Hmm.
Sometimes, yeah, if you get there was another time where we're sitting on a hill and our job was just observe, and I think we were looking for like a high value target or something, trying to identify somebody, and we had gotten compromised by a kid, and it went from well, now they know where we are to we kind of just have to hunker down and defend ourselves
Oh
and wait for
shit.
night to come, and we got to get the fuck out of here. So it's just it could change based on uh, good things or those shit things, and you're just kind of gotta roll with the punches a little bit. You're not. I think for the most part, though, like nobody was really ever scared because you're there to do a job and you understand what the consequences could be. You're well trained.
Yeah.
You trusted people to your left and right pretty heavily too.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't trust your training, what else do you have, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's crazy. So yeah, we jumped ahead a little bit, but that was great. I can
Yeah.
only imagine.
Yeah,
You know,
again, I would say it's interesting and it's a good time because it's
yeah,
things nobody really ever gets to do.
yeah. So backtracking a little bit now, I got a little bit of uh, knowledge in how training was jumping off planes.
Mhm,
Now the sniper part really
mhm.
it really interests me. How was that process? Like, can you just take me from the beginning to like, did you like it? Like, what were the requirements? Was it fun? Was it even fun for you to
Right.
do the job?
So when I had tried out for this scout sniper platoon, it was the idea was you were going to be a part of a more elite element, work in smaller teams, um, but usually have less resources.
Yeah,
So
but before you go on with that, so just so for my personal, information,
Mhm.
is it like a Green Beret kind of thing? That one
No,
I get mixed up. Like,
yeah,
is it that special unit, like Navy SEALs unit, or is it just within that unit of like the Army?
yeah. So it was just within our like basically group,
Okay,
like it was just a smaller piece of us that were offered a little bit more training. We were supposed to be able to be a little bit more capable, do
mm,
more with less. Uh, if the company or the unit needed something done that was maybe outside the realm of everybody else, it would be us to take care of the job. Um, so you got your regular training that everybody else got, but at the same time too, like you would. Our big thing was long range reconnaissance, sniping, uh, and using different or being able to identify different vehicles, using different longer range optics, uh, equipment, different radios. There's a little bit more that you have to know. You have to be in better shape. Our PT requirements were the highest of the entire unit, not by much, but it was enough to weed a little bit of people
how do
out.
they even figure that out? Just like looking at you, or do they measure like body mass index?
They test you. So at the time, the Army physical fitness test was push-ups, sit-ups, and
Okay, just
two,
like a regular.
yeah,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
a
Yeah.
2 mile run. But for them, it was push up, sit ups, a 5 mile run, and then it was a 12 mile, what's called a ruck, where you put on all your shit and you have to walk 12 miles with it.
Oh, wow.
And you have to do it in a certain amount of time. And the standard was always kept at a higher standard than everybody else. Um, But as far as once you get in, you get more training, you get more time with certain gear, certain equipment that a lot of people didn't. As far as the sniper aspect goes, not everybody in the platoon was what's called sniper qualified because you have to get sent to a special school, and there's only so many slots a year allotted to the unit. Um, but those people would go, they would get that training, they'd come back and bring it back, and they would pretty much try and teach everybody else. So you would get a lot of that secondhand, and then we would mock that up in certain scenarios. Like I remember doing, we made ghillie suits, and we did a training rotation in Germany where we did stalking or basically trying to creep up on somebody for a couple days. And that's something not a lot of people get to do.
Yeah.
Um, you
I
just,
haven't heard of it before. The only, I mean, obviously, it's just for me with the movies, like you have like a scout,
yeah,
and then is that real? Is that
yeah, it's a
you have
term we
a
use, scout. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
like you have someone next to you, and they're like,
right.
"Hey, man."
So in the aspect of a sniper pair, like I think there's maybe some movies that get got correct, but a lot don't. So
Mm.
I think TV shows are notorious for getting these things wrong. But usually, it's if you have a sniper, it's not just a lone person. It's usually there's a spotter and the actual
Right.
trigger puller. So the one person's like they have a high powered optic and they're just watching and they're like, this is how fast your wind's going from what direction. This is how far the guy is. This is where we're at elevation. Um, so you're saying all these things to this guy so they can do calculations as far as where they would hold like that crosshair because it's not always going to be dead center and shoot. You might have to just go a little bit higher, a little bit to the right. You'll adjust your optic on your mills is what they can be called. So you'll see people turn knobs, and that's accounting for basically nature, nature and physics.
Yeah,
The
right.
further somebody is, the
And you were the actual sniper. Is that was that like your
so my role in particular I wasn't a dedicated sniper. I was a part of the team, but
yeah,
so my job was basically the backup.
right.
We would have like I still got the training for it, like secondhand, shooting out to 6, 7, 800 meters with some of these little bit higher powered rifles.
Mm,
But I wasn't the one who primarily carried like the long range weapon.
mhm,
And it's like for good reason. Like you want everybody
mm.
carrying it because if you get into a shit hot incident, you want somebody with like a machine gun or belt fed
Yeah.
gun. You want somebody with like a grenade launcher. You want somebody if you're gonna kick in a door with like an M4, something
Mhm.
that's manageable in terms of size. Um, you want somebody who's carrying a radio. You want somebody so everybody still had their designated roles.
It's just you had the like skills in case you needed to do it.
Right.
Right.
Everybody would round robin train.
Mm,
So you could do the other guy's job in case something were to happen to that person.
yeah.
Um, but you learn a little bit of everything. It's again it's a lot of fun and it's something you're never gonna get to really experience again outside of
That's yeah, that's an understatement right there.
yeah yeah.
That's a crazy story just within itself. Can you talk a little bit about I guess your most intense situation,
Hmm.
maybe when it came to a mission or just being in the
Hmm.
military just in general, where you were
Um,
like, "Oh shit."
for me at least, what really resonates with me, well, there's a couple, but one that I can think of that pops into my head almost immediately every time somebody asks this is it was supposed to be it was supposed to be just like an observation operation. So we had went out, and it was like a 5 mile walk out, and it was I remember from our outpost to where we were supposed to go was like a kind of high hill. But in between us and that hill was nothing. And we did it in the middle of the night, and you're just walking, you're fucking tired and you're bored. And we get there and we kind of set up on the side of this hill and we're observing this road. And what we're specifically looking for was um, a truck with like an anti-air machine gun on the back of it that I guess the Taliban was using to shoot at people. It's a high rate of fire, so it's
Wow.
pretty devastating. So we're sitting up on that hill, and then sunlight comes and then something happens to where we either got compromised or we had this part I don't remember, but it turned into we're no longer gonna watch, we're gonna run down this fucking hill and go to this village nearby and basically try and just fuck people up.
Like some lone wolf kind of.
Um,
Sorry, I don't
I mean,
wanna,
there was
relate to
still like
movies, you know
30
what I
of
mean?
us, but it,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
it became something where it was like we're gonna sit back and watch, and it's like, nope, we're gonna do direct we're gonna do direct action.
Mm.
So it's like, so fuck, everybody gets their shit. We run down this hill, we start taking fire, and we get down this hill, and as it flattens out right before the village, there was like this little mound and this L-shaped wall. And I remember we posted up on that wall, and I was right at the 90-degree angle of it. Sort of shooting back. There's people shooting at us from the village. A couple guys kind of run behind the wall around and try and get into this building, and they couldn't fucking do it. It was too hot.
Oh wow.
So they come back, and our air traffic controller, or JTAC, Mitch, who I still keep in contact with to this day, really good guy.
Shout out, Mitch.
Shout out to Mitch. He had called in, I think it was A-10s, or he'd called in some sort of like close air support. And because it was to the point where we were taking so much fire, we had to break contact, is what it's called. So basically, we had to just stop what we're doing. We have to fucking get the fuck out. So we get out of this L-shaped wall. We run back into this flat area, this road. We run up this hill and kind of stop at the other side of it. So this was after walking 5 miles, running another 3, being in a firefight for a couple hours, running back another 3 miles up this fucking hill. So we're all just fucking tired. And then at the end of it, I think it was like, as the sun was starting to set, it's like, we're just gonna RTB, return to base. And then you have to run, or you have to walk the next 7 or 8 miles back, and you're just fucking tired, and everyone's
Yeah.
just, your adrenaline's going.
Right.
Nobody's really eating. And that was one that really sticks in my mind because it so many things changed. And there was a lot going on. It went from, just a boring walk and hang out and watch to we're gonna run up on this village. Oh shit, just kidding. Now we need to get out of here. And after all that said and done, like, no one's gonna come pick you up. You guys just need to huff it back.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You get back, you're fucking smoked, you're tired. Yeah, that's kind of one that
Do
stands
do
out.
you when that kind of stuff happens, do you kind of take it in a little bit, or is it just on to the next one? Is it just kind of like, whoa, that was
I think
fucking
everyone's
intense? Just
different.
yeah.
There's
Personally for you.
yeah. Oh, for me, it was.
Yeah.
I think because I was so young and didn't really understand the ramifications of, you know, of I know. I mean, everybody understands what death is, but I didn't. I don't know. To me, it just wasn't. It was like, oh, this is fine, and you just kind of move on to the next thing. Of course, when somebody dies, it hits you a little differently. But I think being there and being in that setting for an extended period of time, and the dudes to the left and right of you, or left and right of you, are counting on you, and vice versa. Like, you kind of just got to stick with it. Like, there might be times where you need to take a second, but for the most part, like, you just kind of scrub it from your mind, or take what you want from it, and move on.
Yeah.
And people process things differently later on, right?
Yeah.
People are resilient in their own ways, some not so much. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was something where it was like I had to take a time out every
Sure.
time. Yeah, it's you just get, I don't want to say numb to it, but you get used to it.
Yeah, for sure. I could only imagine. I mean, especially being in that intense situation, when you're facing that, most people won't know.
Right.
But I guess evolutionary wise, we're just wired, like hematosis kind of sets in, and that's your new baseline, right?
Yeah.
Because you see
Yeah.
it, you're trained for it.
Right.
It's weird to say, right?
Yeah.
It's weird to say because you're out there in, almost like a danger zone in an unfamiliar situation that most people won't go through.
Right.
And then, with you being in the military for years, you're sitting here saying, oh, you just kind of get used to it, where most of us would be like, Oh,
Yeah.
what the fuck? We could only visualize it.
But you're right, it's like anything, like, if you have a job where you're standing on your feet for 12 hours, you'll get used to that.
Yeah,
And if
hemotosis.
it's your
I meant to say homeostasis, but
homeostasis,
yeah,
yeah.
there you
No,
go.
I understand what you meant.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's you'll get used to it, like anything, like anything.
Yeah,
Getting
yeah,
cold, standing on your feet,
yeah.
sleeping during the day, like, you get used to it. You
How
do get used to it.
prevalent, um, as far as what you've seen, having to go through it, and not even, you know, just going to front lines and going to battle all the time is PTSD. As far as like real time in your eyes, like
Yeah.
from what you've seen, is it? Have you seen? For sure, it's real. You
Mhm.
see things, and then it just fucks with you.
Yeah.
But from your experience, like bad or how much have you seen of like PTSD?
Uh, I mean,
I know they're probably all different too.
yeah, they are all different. I've seen people, they manifest these feelings in different ways. Like I've seen people, typical, uh, drink a lot, become depressed,
Yeah.
not very happy, and some people become manic in other ways where it's just like they get hyper focused on, well, I'm just gonna fucking journal and write my feelings down, and it's like you've been journaling for 7 days straight, and this book is you've 3 books out of your feelings. Everyone's different. It's definitely prevalent, at least when I was in, and years after. Like you always hear about it, you always see it. And it sucks when every now and then you'll hear this dude killed himself, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh fuck,
Mhm.
like
That's like the ultimate
yeah,
kind of like
that's
PTSD. Yeah, because the PTSD, it seems I think when most people think of it, it's to the extreme, right?
mhm.
It's kind of like, honestly, I don't, it's hard for me to make the comparison, but like CTE, it's not like full blown, you're all of a sudden just slurring your words and stuff like that.
Yeah,
CTE comes very, very slowly, and
yeah.
you get signs of it, and people just don't act up all crazy once you have CTE. I could only imagine that PTSD is like that. It's kind of slow. Maybe it progresses over
Yeah,
time.
gradual, different
Yeah,
flavors, of course,
yeah.
different, it comes out in different ways, uh, and then people from the outside sometimes chalk it up to like, oh, you're just stressed at work. Oh, you're just, being dramatic, or sometimes they look at it as like it's might be so gradual that to that person's immediate family or friends, it's normal to them
Mm,
after a while, and
I
just, they didn't
see.
even notice it.
They
And
kind of
everyone's
just let it,
yeah,
yeah, let it go a
everyone's
little bit.
different, and it is something that's prevalent. I would say even to this day, like you still hear about people having a rough time with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Were you ever concerned about that, like with yourself? Even though I know you, and you're like a very level-headed guy.
yeah,
Did you think about like if there was any? Because you're talking like it's enchilance, and
right.
obviously you've had the training. Are you conscious of it? Like as far as like, do I have something? Maybe a little
I
bit from what
yeah,
I've seen.
and
Like, have
I
you thought
think I'm
about that?
so nonchalant about it because it was so long ago. Uh, if you had talked to me about this, you know, the same year I had gotten, back home, it would have been a little different. Uh, you always worry about it. You always worry that it's going to creep up on you again. Um, I think I've done a decent job of building resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it
Just
seems like. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and you hope everybody else does the same thing too. Stay busy, get hobbies, meet new people,
Yeah.
start a family, be successful at your job, be
Have a
successful just
purpose,
in
right?
life. Yeah, have a
Yeah.
purpose. You
Yeah.
have that purpose. It doesn't. I don't want to say it like it keeps those feelings like blocked away, but it definitely helps to like settle them and come to terms with it. And at the end of the day, like it's one of those things where um, the worst thing that's ever happened to somebody is the worst thing that ever happened to somebody. So if
Right.
that's like if you go from like never experiencing any conflict at all, having a very easy life, and all of a sudden you do join the military and you go through the training, and it's like holy fuck, you have this super traumatic experience. You get out and you don't really ever have exposure to, even if it's just like conflict as in like personal conflict of like today's hard, but I'm gonna get out of bed. I feel like shit, and I'm gonna go work out. I'm gonna go, I'm
Mm.
gonna do something. Um, it makes it harder to recover from. whether it be post traumatic stress, um, some sort of traumatizing event. Uh, but for myself personally, there might have been a time where a year or two after I got out, I was a little worried. And I don't know if it was some mild form of PTSD or just me being frustrated with coming back into the civilian world. I dealt with some things, but it wasn't to the point where it was just like it was a super concerning thing, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
Because I know I can't say the same for everybody.
Right, right. Is there any aspect? Now, I'm not gonna get into it too much,
Mhm.
uh, but do you have like a kind of like I know faith gets involved in a lot of it, right? When
Yeah.
people's thinking it's kind of like, whoa, it's like I always had faith that I would get out and like, like God's watching them.
Yeah.
Were you ever that type? Not to get into like religion too much,
Mhm.
but were you ever that type or were you just kind of like, this is just how it is?
You know,
Like,
it's funny because I was growing up. My mom was super hardcore. She went from like being super hardcore Buddhist to super hardcore Christian, and I never really
that's
got it or
interesting.
understood. And so when I leave and do my own thing, I'm just like, don't even think about it. And then as time goes on, and it's like, well, you're gonna go to this fucking war zone tomorrow. It kind of clicks, or eventually clicks, and it's like, shit, you this could be kind of it. So there was a point where I don't remember exactly when it was, but there was a point where it was like, I was praying. I did at one point. I'm not going to say I was going to church all the time, but I did have a Bible in my barracks room, and it was seldom, but I would look into it and flip through certain pages. I remember having, I don't know, I don't even remember where I found it, but I had like a little plastic black cross that I had tied 550 cord. It was just like regular cord around, and I'd kept it in my pocket throughout deployment. And I'd kept it the entire time and actually brought it home with me. And I wouldn't say I got like super religious or was praying every day or became converted in a certain religion, but
Right.
I definitely believe like you
Enlightened.
you
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's like, yeah, God is watching over you, God has a
Yeah.
purpose. And things get tough, you do pray.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I think the reason why I ask is I think when people go through like because I would call that, especially being like in the middle of like a firefight or not even that, maybe catching a disease or something.
Mhm.
People go through like this existential crisis, and then that seems to be like, dude, when you have nothing left, and when everything's taken out of you, maybe you're in pain
Yeah.
mentally or physically. You see this a lot in like alcohol's like anonymous, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of like you have not have to, but then you're like forced to turn to like something higher than yourself because
Right.
this you're right, like you said, this could be it, and it's almost like you start questioning, well, what was it all for? What's the
Mhm.
meaning of life? Hopefully someone could protect me out
Mhm.
there. If someone watching, like, because a lot of things are out of our control,
Yeah.
and it seems to be just for some people a soothing way to put a meaning to it.
Very
Kind of like,
soothing.
well, and a reframe, right? It's almost
Right.
like, well, I'm in the situation for a reason, whether you like it there. I definitely, same with you. Like with my dad, uh, and with my mom, she was hardcore religious, right?
Mhm.
I grew up Catholic, and for me, I kind of got out of there. I didn't, really care for it, to be honest.
Mhm.
But then as I grew older, call it the divine God, most people like don't like to say because, with what happens in the media with religion and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But yeah, what personally for me, what I notice is that when you go through some existential crisis, you're almost forced to or get into like a closer faith kind of.
Yeah.
You get closer to faith, you get closer to divine God, uh you're the universe, or
Because
you
you're
know
searching for comfort, answers,
yeah,
maybe
right.
some way out, right? And
Mhm.
that's when it's out of your control. It feels like it's out of your control. It's like, well, then you find a divine power, and hopefully that gets you out. I have recently, probably within the last year, started going to church, but like, I don't even want to say going, but I listened. There's a church that I went to for a couple of months up in Centennial, and I moved away from that area. And with my work schedule, it's kind of hard to go on Sundays. But I listened to I make it a point to listen to their service every
Yeah.
Sunday, Monday. And something that the pastor always said was, people only start coming to church at a low point in their life.
Mm.
And it's absolutely for answers, for help, for
Yeah.
guidance,
Right.
for you have your physical and mental well-being, but people forget about the spiritual a lot. Your physical and mental are great. Like it's so easy to put down on the back burner because it's just you're you're riding your own high. You don't have to, it's too easy just to chalk all your success up to you and your hard work
Yeah.
and good timing, good luck.
When things
And
are going good, they're going good,
yeah,
right?
exactly. That's when people tend to forget about God or
Mm.
their spirituality. But it is important, and a lot of times you're right. Like people find it when shit gets rough.
Yeah.
That's where I did kind of have that. Um, and when I was in Afghanistan, um, to this day, as I get older, as just like you, I find it to be more important in my life than it kind of ever has been. Um, and really, just to make it a point to, not going to say I'm, you know, a, I try and be a nice person. You try and be a little bit better every day, right? Try and be a decent human being. There's a lot of work to be done, my part, that's for sure. But it's you're always a work in progress. Um,
Yep.
you do need to fill that spiritual need. We all have it,
Yeah,
no matter how you
man.
feel it.
I can't. It's so. That's probably why it's called spiritual in the first place, because you have to find it, right? It's
Hmm.
not like it's not physical, hell, even mental. It's just it's I would define it just as faith.
Hmm.
And at first, man, before we get out of the subject, I I almost felt bad, right? Because a lot of people only get through that when, say, they're like an addict and they can't find a way out,
Right.
or if they're like, again, if God forbid they get shot up and they're
Hmm.
in the middle facing death,
Hmm.
and they're like, dude, what do I do? I'm alone,
Hmm.
like in their head, right?
Hmm.
They got family around, but they're like, eventually you die alone, even though your
Because you're the
family's
one
around
going
you.
through it.
You're the one going
Yeah,
through it.
your
And
family's there to support, but
yeah,
you,
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
It's you. Like, you're gonna die alone.
Yeah.
Eventually. And so where I was going with that is that at first I had a hard time saying, "Oh, well, yeah, now I need God now." You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like, wow, like, yeah, what kind of a person that makes me?
Right.
But then it's almost
Yeah.
like the reframe kind of thing, if we were to put a logical sense into it, that, or a spiritual kind of thing, where you say to yourself, that happened for a reason, to bring you closer to the divine or
Right.
your God,
Right.
or whatever religion you believe in.
Right.
And I think, again, not to get too deep into it, but I think growing up, it's just kind of like this folklore kind of mentality,
Hmm.
like even with the church thing, right? It's Yes, most religions would have you go to like the house of God and whatever you think that is, but
Hmm.
some people will tell you, like, you are God, you're his co-creator,
Right. Yeah.
whatever you define it as, or whatever you believe. Like,
Yeah.
God's already in you, or he's right next to you, like watching over you all the time. And you get this picture of like God in a gray beard, right? Like, they
Yeah.
put a face on it. It's kind of
Right.
like, well, what, like, I don't know, what does someone else Allah look like? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Black Jesus, you know what I
Right.
mean?
And
So growing up, that's what we were kind of taught to visualize a little bit.
right. And when you're young like that too, there's this, your brain's not fully developed. You don't really have a concept of time. You don't really have a concept of what life is. So it's hard to take somebody who's 16, 17 years old and get them to really think and believe into what is, to them is this non-existent person. I hear about this person, we read about it, we talk about it every Sunday, but I never see them, I never hear them. Like, and it's super hard, I think, in that developmental stage to really grasp those concepts and really truly believe. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I can see why it's very difficult at that age. And as you get older, right, like you become more wise. You
Yeah.
become more understanding of what life is and what death is.
Yeah.
Um, and to to add to your point and not to feel, I would like, don't feel bad about, coming back to spirituality during your time, because I myself like really only started going, or what got me back into church, what got me back into spirituality was some pretty negative things in my life too. So it's, I think it's just, it all happens for a reason. Though. You're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
exactly. It's just, well, that led you to get closer. I mean, to go back to spirituality,
Mhm.
right? It's not like, oh, now you're turning to spirituality because now you need it. It's almost
Right.
like, well, that circumstance led you to that. It's kind of like an awakening,
Right.
a little bit, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, man. So relating to that, we man, that was an awesome conversation. But
Yeah.
relating to that, we train together
Yeah.
at Syndicate and Muay Thai. I know this is like a martial arts podcast, but um, and self development podcast. And what got you into Muay Thai, man? Is it relating to like the military? Number one, I want to say I used to be a Muay Thai coach at San Diego Brazilian Jiu
Mhm.
Jitsu over at San Diego, and a lot of military, right?
Mhm.
Because of
Ton.
Oceanside and
A ton, I'm sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of them are trained for like hand to hand combat, is
Mhm.
what you know what I mean. Like as far as using their
So
fists and
it's
kicks. And,
funny because I want to I'll share something with you about that. But to answer your original question is I got well, specifically martial arts was I started at like 7 or 8. Your parents enroll you into the YMCA, or
yeah,
like it was first a YMCA for karate, and I
the
didn't like
karate
that.
one,
And then
yeah.
a month later they put me in this Taekwondo school, and I loved that. So I actually did I started doing Taekwondo as my base, and I did that for about maybe 5 or 6 years. And then across the street from the Taekwondo gym it was just like a grungy, hole in the wall gym in like the strip mall. Um, but not only did they have like weight equipment, but they had an octagon, a ring, and some
Oh
mat
wow, yeah.
and a bunch of bags. So it was like went there one day, and they did kickboxing, Muay Thai, jujitsu, and wrestling, and it was across the street from my other gym, and it was cheaper.
Mm.
So it was an easy sell for my parents. It was like, fuck yeah, get the fuck out of there. We're done paying $100 a month. Go pay $30 a month to get your ass beat. So then I started going there. I really fell in love with it was kind of like American style kickboxing was what I started with there. Kakino Kickboxing Development was I guess the the gem, or the the theme. And it was different because I started learning how to box. Because Taekwondo, you don't really use your hands very much. You didn't point spar. You would
Yep.
2 3 minute rounds. You have to be a little bit more creative. The footwork of Taekwondo kind of came in handy a little bit. The recoiling of your leg, and I just stuck with it. It was a lot of fun. I loved it. It was a way for me to get out of the house. It was a way for me to stay out of trouble. It was fun. Um, I continued to do that until I left. And then I want to say I really got into the Muay Thai aspect when I had gotten back from the army to Hawaii, continuing to train with other people at UFC gym in Waikele, Waipahu on Oahu. And then I'd moved away from there, went to San Antonio, trained at Ambush Muay Thai.
Mm.
It was excellent gym.
Yeah.
Bobby Peak's an excellent coach, and they had amazing fighters come out of there. Um, and the way it was taught, the foundation of the entire school, it was so good. It was like this is
Like their structure and their
yeah,
system.
and it's
Yeah.
I just loved it, stuck with it. It is a little bit different than like American style kickboxing or elbow knee. You grab
Mm.
somebody's head, you can turn them, throw them, trip them. That's not something you really do in kickboxing. Um, but yeah, it's that, and the stand up aspect has always been very interesting, very fascinating to me. I've always loved it. I have done jujitsu, not very good at it. I'm
Mm.
fucking terrible. Done wrestling, not very good at it. I'm fucking terrible.
I'm with
Um,
you, man.
but yeah,
I'm
but
fucking
I
with you.
mean, and then you could say like, well, it's because you just started. It's like, yeah, absolutely. But there's just something very, I don't know. It's so different with stand up and being able to just kick somebody's leg out from underneath them.
Yeah.
It's it's just cool.
It's what you drew to you. Yeah,
It's just
very
cool.
different.
Yeah,
It's something else. Yeah,
it's so it's very primal. It's just a lot of fun.
yeah.
But
And you're very good at that. I gotta
it's
say.
fucking I
You know what
try,
I mean?
dude.
Yeah,
I
like
try.
that your movement. And now that you tell me that you were in like Taekwondo, you could really see it based on your
Yeah.
footwork, right? It's a different style.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. Compared to your, like the knock move, and just standing straight up and banging.
Right.
You take angles a lot,
I try.
which I really love.
I
Because,
try to.
yeah, starting with my first discipline in boxing, like footwork has a lot of it. And yeah, I found your style not only very effective, I like how it looks. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? To be able to go to
Thank
angles
you.
and move around.
I
and,
appreciate that.
yeah, it
I
looks
really
smooth.
love that. Thank you.
What were you gonna say about like when I was saying that when I was coaching, like most like military guys aren't trained for.
So everybody, and this is not to dog on anybody
Of
in
course,
the
of
army or
course.
military,
Of course
period.
not, yeah.
But it's
It's just a lack of training that they
yeah,
they
there
don't
is.
give it,
So
yeah.
in terms of like hand to hand stuff, for the army at least, they do a 4-level system. It's called combatives, level 1, 2, 3, 4. And everybody everybody in a combat role has to have at least level 1. Level 1 is a lot of, and it's to kind of give you how much training it is. It's a week. Level 1 is
I would have figured.
putting somebody into guard, passing guard. I think you do like 1 or 2 submissions on the arm, and I think you do like very little punching. And your test out for your level 1 is you literally just have to run up to somebody who's punching you and be able to either get double unders or put them in a body lock or get a over under. So
At
you
least they
ima-
teach you that, man.
yeah,
Like,
but
you know,
you could
like,
imagine like doing that for a week, and then level 2 is like then you learn how to kickbox a little bit. Well, that's only 2 weeks. Then level 3 is a little bit more advanced, but I think that's only a month. And then level 4 is actually how to put together a competition and how to score.
Yeah.
So all in all, between all of that, like really hands-on training is about 2.5 months.
That's crazy.
So when you think about, the efficiency of training, like think about the people that have been at Syndicate for 2.5 months from like, there's an improvement, sure,
Yeah.
but it's very far from being effective, right? So you think about that in terms of the military where it's like you do this course for a week, then you might have a month off before you do before you even do the other one. Like it's not the most effective.
It's not constant repetition.
No, and they do that because the likelihood of you going hands-on with somebody is usually pretty low.
Sure.
It's not zero,
Right.
but I mean, you're not fucking running full speed at somebody all the time.
It's not the priority.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Shoot and move is the priority.
Mhm.
But so it's interesting you say that, and I'm sure everybody can account for some military guy who's shown up to a fight gym or something and thought they were hot shit and got their ass whooped and fucking like
Yeah, I mean,
it's-
yeah, and again, not to knock up against them, it's just the system, right?
It's a
just
system.
The training, like I said, you can't even blame that because that's not like the highest of the priority
Yeah.
that they're trying to aim for. I mean, that's even with like police, like as far as like police officers, that's a little different because they're always. I would imagine that they're more inclined to get closer to. I mean,
Yeah.
they're dealing with people.
Oh, yeah,
up close
all the time.
all the time. That's why you see a lot of them in jiu-jitsu nowadays. Quick story, I actually was offered, like, I believe he was a sergeant, Marcos from San Diego, SDPD. He actually offered me at the age of 35, like, hey, we're going to start this program, right? And he said something about, like,
like
pushing
jujitsu
my
program for police. Oh, that's
like
really
a
cool.
training program
Okay.
over there. And, like, yeah, we're like setting up this room, like legit, like a legit program for it. And, I've been doing about not long, maybe like 2.5 years, 2 years of jujitsu. I didn't, that's not very long, but
Right. But
Muay
for
Thai
them,
probably
with
longer.
somebody who has 0 days, it's a lot.
yeah,
That's a ton.
exactly. And I think the status of like being a Muay Thai coach too, it just has more weight to it. Just kind of like, oh, well, you're the Muay Thai coach, so you should probably train
Right.
that. And for me, I had a lot of imposter syndrome when it came to that. But then, yeah, he was like, yeah, we'll push your paperwork, and all that. I was
That's
like, oh, that's
really cool.
interesting. And even again, long story short, he was in the Marines, I believe, and he was doing like high level security work. He'd drive down to LA and then do security for like princesses and who'd ever fly down. That's why when
Executive
you were telling me-
protection.
yeah. And he also told me that, and he mentioned something that stuck with me because which I thought was interesting. So I was coaching him, and he was like, "Yeah, you should get into it because you have the look for it." I'm like, "What does that even mean?" You know. So what he was really trying to say was like, you work out, you're in shape, you have tattoos and stuff like that.
Intimidating.
You look intimidating.
Intimidating, yeah.
So that's not to say like, okay, cool. If you have the skills with that, great. But then it's like, oh, you get a gist of kind of like how the world works.
Yeah.
I know I'm kind of going off topic.
No, but he's
it's
absolutely
like,
right.
wow,
It's a
like,
deterrent. If you look like you're ready, then people will, I mean, there's lesser chance of people fucking with you, right?
Right. Yeah. Like even the psychological aspect, how you talk and how you like, posture up and what's the demeanor about you, right? And I thought that was just really interesting. So
that's really cool, man. That would have been a sweet gig.
It would have been, but then I had to move out here for family purposes.
Right.
So that's why I'm out here. But dude, this was a gem of a podcast, man. I appreciate you for coming on.
Yeah.
We just reached over an hour, and damn, that was a very, very valuable hour, man. So thank you for coming on.
Of course, that was a lot of fun, dude.
Hell yeah,
a lot of
let's
fun.
go.
I love it.